Welcome to the episode 19 summary of the Reading Finnegans Wake in 200 Sessions podcast, where we analyze Finnegans Wake by James Joyce 3 pages at a time. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. All right, today we're tackling a big one, maybe the biggest one of all, James Joyce's Finnegans Wake. Our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to dive in and decode one single really weird incident at a gate. So, you've probably heard the rumors about this book, right? That it's completely dense, totally chaotic. Some people even say it's unreadable. But here's the thing. What if we could just take one tiny little piece of it? I'm talking just 3 pages, and actually make it click? Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to try to do right now. Okay, so let's not even worry about all the huge, complicated theories or those study guides that take years to get through. Nope, we're jumping right into the deep end. We're going to focus on these 3 pages and see what we can find. I'm talking mysteries, weird jokes, the whole shebang. Let's do it together. All right, so our story kicks off with a real head-scratcher. Something weird has gone down at a gate late at night. And what we get is this jumble of conflicting reports and these just totally bizarre excuses. It's kind of like a detective show, but if it was written by a comedian who's just trying to mess with you. And really, this is the big question that's driving this whole section. There was a huge noise. Some guy gets caught, and suddenly all these different stories start to spill out. And as you're about to see, trying to get a straight answer, well, that's half the battle. And honestly, it's also half the fun. And we get an excuse right off the bat. The suspect? He claims he just mistook a gatepost for a caterpillar. I mean, what even is that? This is just pure classic Joyce. He invents this word that's totally ridiculous, but also you kind of get what he means, right? It tells you immediately that this is not your average crime report. So here's where it gets juicy, because the stories just do not line up. The guy says, "Oh, I'm just a process server. I was just trying to open my beer on the gate." Yeah, right. But then you have witnesses who saw something totally different. A big, heavy-set guy, a noise that sounded a lot like gunshots, and this battering babble that woke up the entire neighborhood. The official story is already full of holes. Okay, and this is where we start peeling back the layers. The text says the guy was muttering Irish. On the surface, that sounds simple enough, right? He was speaking Irish. But Joyce is a master of the pun. Hidden just underneath is murthering Irish, a really nasty, historical, anti-Irish slur. So bam, with just 2 little words, he's packed in history, politics, and a genuine feeling of danger. So we're right in the middle of this, right? We're right in the middle of this. We've got our detective hats on. We're trying to piece together what actually happened. And then, out of nowhere, the narrator just stops. He slams on the brakes hard. I mean, the text literally calls for a timeout. It's like the narrator just steps out from behind the curtain, holds up a hand and says, "Whoa, hold on a second, everybody. I'm about to completely change the channel on you." And this is the command that flips the switch. We're told to roll away the real world, the real world, the real world. Get it? Not R-E-A-L, but R-E-E-L, as in a film reel. We are literally leaving the real story behind and stepping right into the movies. So where are we going? Well, we get dropped smack dab into the middle of what feels like a silent movie melodrama. You know the type. It's got all the classic characters and a storyline you've seen a million times about a sugar daddy and the young women he's involved with. And the plot is so simple, it's almost funny. You've got this old guy called Grandpapa who promises one girl this amazing happy love nest, but really she just wants his cash so she can look good for other dudes. Then, plot twist, he's got a second girlfriend on the side, and his ultimate fantasy is to get both of them together. It's your classic recipe: desire, lies, and a whole lot of fantasy. But here's the really cool part. This isn't just some random made-up movie. Joyce stuffs it full of real-life pop culture from the 1920s. That whole Peaches thing, that's a direct reference to a huge real-life tabloid scandal about an old rich guy and his teenage wife. The whole section is also packed with lyrics from hit songs of the day and slang that World War I soldiers used. He's literally building this fantasy world out of bits and pieces of the real one. Okay, so let's recap. We've got a public scandal happening at a gate, and we've got a private fantasy playing out on a movie screen. What in the world is the connection here? Is this just Joyce being random? Well, of course not. He's about to connect the dots for us. And he doesn't beat around the bush. The narrator tells us straight up that the 2 stories are in the same bateau, or in the same boat. He's telling us that the public crime at the gate And the private fantasy in the film, they're connected. The guy at the gate, the bottle he was holding, the old man in the movie, it's all one big story. And this is the key. The incident at the gate, that's the public version of the story. It's messy, full of accusations, nobody can agree on what happened. But the silent film, that's the private story. It's a peek behind the curtain at all the secret desires and fantasies that might be going on. It's almost like the movie is the subconscious dream that's driving the crime. So after linking the real world with the real world, the narrator steps back in one last time, to give us the big moral of the story. But because this is James Joyce we're talking about, the moral is, well, it's not exactly what you'd call straightforward. And here it is, the big lesson. He says that the amount of all those sort of things which has been going on has been particularly stupendous. I mean, all those sort of things? It's so ridiculously vague. He's basically saying that scandals, secrets, fantasies, all of it, this stuff happens all the time, everywhere, and there's just a ton of it. It's a funny way of saying that this cycle of public scandal and private secrets is just a basic part of being human. And then, just like an old-timey movie serial, he hits us with a to be continued, leaving us hanging. But wait, the story's not quite over. There is one final little piece to this puzzle. A word from our sponsor, if you will. Apparently, this whole story was presented by the Federals, Uniteds, Transports, Unions for Exaltations of Triumphants Ecstasies. Wow, that's a mouthful. It sounds super official, right? Very important. You're left wondering, what on earth could that mean? Well, if you take the first letter of each of those words, you get an acronym. F-U-T-U-E-T-E. And it turns out that's an acronym for some Latin slang that translates pretty bluntly to fuck you. And that's where he leaves us. After all that work, right? All the detective stuff, the literary analysis, digging through history and pop culture, Joyce just winks at us from the page with a final hidden joke. It really makes you ask the big question. Is Finnegans Wake a profound puzzle about human nature and the subconscious mind? Or is it just the world's most elaborate, complicated literary prank? With Joyce, the answer is almost always probably a little bit of both.